Okay, Mark, we're delighted to have you here. Thank you so much for coming along and contributing to the Masters in Critical Care programme at the University of Glasgow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would you just like to state your name for us and let us know a bit about yourself?
So my name is Mark Hudson and I'm an ICU survivor. I was in Crosshouse ICU from the 27th of December 2015 for 3 weeks, so into the middle of January in 2016. I had stoma relocation surgery on the November prior to that, and I didn't really seem to bounce back like I had with the previous surgeries. So we just thought I was just taking a bit longer. But as we kind of approached the kind of Christmas period, I started feeling a bit more unwell. I was spending more time in bed because I was just feeling a bit unwell, and it progressed to becoming acutely sore joints and then becoming quite difficult to move, and kind of Christmas Eve I was getting to the point where I was having trouble getting out of bed. My joints were almost seized, like I couldn't straighten up. I was hunched over, kind of like an old person moving, and I had to get help getting out of bed. So we thought, maybe just something that will just pass. And spent Christmas Day thoroughly miserable, only up for maybe a couple of hours and then back to my bed. And then on Boxing Day we decided we needed to get help. So we phoned the out of hours GP service and went to see them, and they said, well, it might be some sort of inflammatory thing in your joints, so you can either get anti-inflammatories or we can admit you. And I've had a long history of admission into hospital. I've been in hospital more times than I would like to count, and so I chose the anti-inflammatory option, and it didn't work. It seemed to make it worse. So the next day I was much worse, and so I was, the Boxing Day is the last day I have a clean memory of. That is the last day where I can remember exactly what happened. On the 27th, I became really unwell, just having trouble breathing and things. So my parents took me to A&E, and I was seen in the A&E. The junior doctor decided I would be admitted to the general receiving ward, but the nurse thought I was too unwell, that I needed more closely monitored than I would get on a general ward. So she spoke to my parents, and then they spoke to the junior doctor. The junior doctor spoke to his senior, and the senior said, no, general ward, he's fine enough for a general ward. But the nurse was like, I'm not really happy with this, so I'm going to come up and speak to the HDU team to get them to see you. So I was taken up, and the HDU team came through to see me once I was in receiving, and immediately took me through. And then in the middle of that night, as far as I've been told, I was taken down to ICU because my oxygen sats were down in the high 70s. So I was taken quickly down to ICU. I was put into an induced coma and intubated. And I can't say when my delirium started, whether it started in the ICU when I was put under, or whether it started in HDU, or whether it started before I was admitted. But my experience was that I was being hunted down. I was being pursued, and I would get captured, and then I would be tortured. And on reflection, the torture coincided with things that were done to me. So my wrists were cut open. That was when I was getting in the exact positions that the arterial lines were put in. My neck was cut open from when the central lines were put in. So I would be tortured. They would try to find out the location of my family. I would then have periods where I would escape, but I would still be in terror because I was being hunted down by these people who wanted to hurt me, who wanted to hurt my family. I would get away. They would then capture me again, and it would repeat. And for me, when I woke up, I thought 7 years had passed. I thought I was being tortured, escaping, recaptured and tortured for 7 years. That was my belief. That was what I had experienced while I was under. And it's quite common amongst the ICU survivors, because I've spoke with other ones working with the Inspire rehabilitation clinic service, that it's quite a common thing to be tortured or experimented on, and it's pretty horrific, and it seems, in my mind at least, with my experience, to be tied to things that were done to save my life. The arterial lines and the central lines were things that weren't really optional. But after ICU, I was in HDU, stepping down, relearning how to walk and all the things. It's extremely frustrating, because to my mind, when I woke up, my mind was relatively clear. Once I woke up and spoke to people, I was aware that 7 years hadn't passed, but I could no longer do the things that, as far as I could remember yesterday, I could do. So I couldn't lift my arms, I couldn't walk, I couldn't breathe on my own. And they're all quite frustrating, and you get very angry, and you get angry at everyone because you can't do what you used to do, and everything is harder, and just lifting your arm can make you so tired that you need to sleep. But just doing a little more than you did yesterday, you kind of build back up. I had 3 weeks in HDU walking and doing my rehabilitation, and by the time I stepped down, I was reasonably, I could walk maybe 20 metres in a day and not be completely done in. And then I got extremely lucky, and I caught flu on the infectious disease ward, which set me back even further, being isolated for nearly 3 weeks in the ID ward. So that caused some mental health issues for me. I became quite depressed because I was in quite a fragile state after ICU to start with, and then being essentially, you're not locked in a room, but you're basically told don't come out, so you are locked in it. It doesn't help. And when you're in isolation, people don't come in like they would usually. They come in and say, do you need water? They don't. You get seen when the nurses are coming in to do obs, or when someone is coming in for something. So that isolation put me in a pretty dark place. It was pretty bad. But thankfully,